So I've finished the second brew. I did back-to-back Kolsch brews in the Fermzilla 27 litre. On the whole, I found it a very good, easy to use piece of equipment. Considering the price, it brings pressure fermenting to a lot of people for a fraction of the cost that you would pay for a Unitank. Certainly in the UK, you're getting up to, unless you want to try and pressure ferment at 1 psi, which is a bit unrealistic. You're looking at £1,000, £1,050 sterling. So for this bit of kit, including all the additional gubbins, the thermowell, the blow-off tube, additional bottle and stuff like that, it was less than 200 quid. Considering I sold an SS 7-gal Chronicle, I think it was, for a few £100, I had £100 left over, and I bought this with all the shiny stuff that went with it. Yeah, okay, it's plastic. I'm not going to be able to scrub the inside of it as much as I could with the SS. That's stainless steel. Stainless steel has probably a better life than this. Again, it's plastic. You can see what's going on inside this. You don't want to underscore that in terms of like pros. For me, there's a big thing about enjoyment, pleasure in homebrewing, and to be able to open your fermentation fridge up and see that things are going crazy inside there's a massive satisfaction to that, and you can't do that inside a stainless steel vessel. Yeah, okay, they use stainless in commercial or when they're actual breweries are doing it. They're not going to use plastic vessels like this, but if you can, why not? It's in a fermentation fridge, so I'm not going to get any light at it. It's temperature controlled. Yeah, so pros, it's pretty light. It's simple to use. Cost is a good one. If something goes wrong, most of the bits are available on AliExpress if you want to buy Chinese. Yeah, and it fits inside most fridges, which I'm particularly pleased with. In terms of cons, the thermowell, having to step drill the cap with the slight recess to then fit the thermowell in, it's a bit fiddly. And if you're not that way inclined, it's very easy to fuck up or go through the lid because you've just gone a little bit too far with the next step. Step drills aren't cheap as well. Little bit of fiddliness there. The threads on these caps don't work particularly well. There's a lot of toing and froing about, are they thread lock or are they neck lock? Because these leak quite a lot, and obviously you don't want to over tighten them. However, when they do leak, people tend to then try and tighten them a bit too much, but they don't lock on the thread like you get in some places. They lock like a like a standard bottle of pop does. When you look inside the cap there, you can see the rubber silicone seal inside the top of the cap. That sits on top of the neck, and that's what actually does the sealing. It's not the threads. So people putting PTFE or similar on the threads, that's not really going to do the business. If you do stop the leak, That's a kind of side benefit, although you haven't actually fixed the root cause, because it's the neck to the top of the cap. That's where the seal is. So I needed to get a a shower washer, and I put a shower washer in the cap and sat it in there, and then tightened it down onto the top of that, and that's done the business. I was leaking more on this side than this side, and I had a little leak on this one as well, although admittedly I got away with some pretty thick food grade lubricant in the same area. That stopped the leak down here. I also had a problem with the neck, the big neck O-ring that goes right around the top. I had substantial leakage from that. It didn't matter what I did, I was struggling with it. I put loads of lubricant on it, and then I would be fine pressure up to about 8.5 psi, and then anything after that you could hear it go, and then you would get air leakage or gas, it was CO2 actually. So once that had blown, it didn't matter what pressure it was at, it would release. But that's not good enough for me. The unit's supposed to be able to take, I think it's 45 psi, not that you would go that high, but you want it to be able to handle that. It was a pretty simple fix in the end. I just changed the neck seal for the other one that comes with the unit. However, that means now that I've got one good and one bad neck seal, it would be good to have two. I guess if I'd gone back to Angel and said, Angel Homebrew, and said, I've got a problem with these neck seals, can you replace one? They probably would have done, because the service is always top notch. Anyway, the thermal oil, you've got to cut that down. Again, I needed to use an angle grinder on it and then just chamfer the edges down slightly just so that it wasn't sharp. And if you're putting your thermoprobe in there, you don't want it to start cutting the wires. It's a little bit cumbersome because of the size of it. These handles don't always work the best. Also, people tighten these handles down too much and you get crazing in the plastic around here, which isn't ideal, and that'll fail. That can lead to your unit failing, and it will fail warranty because you've overdone them. They should be loose like that, just tight enough so that, I mean, they still move around. They should be able to still move around the neck like that, because all we're doing is lifting up underneath the little neck plastic that's there. The valve is pretty clunky. You've really got to hang on to the vessel to lever it closed or open. And it's harder in one direction than the other. I can't remember which. That being said, and then obviously trying to get the dump vessel off can be a bit tricky. Loads of people have problems with that, myself included. I needed to get the strap wrench on it, but as soon as I got the strap wrench on it and then held onto the valve, a little crack, and it came away. It was pretty easy in the end. I was able to ferment 2 beers. I had a problem with pressure on the first one, fixed it between brews, and then brewed my second beer with a pressure at 14 psi, not for any particular reason. It held the pressure absolutely fine. I managed to take it all the way up to 25. I'm not going to need to go that far, but it worked perfectly well. I wasn't passing in any other area at that point. Everything worked very well. The removing beer from the vessel works very simple. The lines, setting up the lines with the quick disconnects onto the keg is very easy to use, but you could use that with anything else that's not necessarily a pro for this piece of equipment. I'm very happy with my purchase. I definitely think it's worth the money. If you're debating on whether to make the leap because you think stainless steel is leaps and bounds better than something you can buy in plastic, possibly in terms of sanitation, it is. However, for me, I've stepped back from stainless steel and I'm very happy with this. I wouldn't, making the same purchase again with the knowledge I have now, I would go straight for this and I wouldn't bother with the stainless steel. That being said, I've still got a brew bucket and I will continue to use it, but only when this is full. I'm going to use this at all other times. I can take samples down here if I need to. I can dump the cone when I want to. I can take yeast off of it. I can dry hop down here, purge the CO2 out of it before opening the valve back up again, so I can do complete oxygen deprived transfer and fermentation. Yeah, and you get to see the magic happening, and the magic is always very exciting. I'm very happy with it. I suggest if you're looking for something, you go and buy something very similar to this. Thanks very much for watching.